I am the host of Sovereign Soul, and that's also the name of my upcoming book. And I write this is a memoir. It's a memoir about my life and my story and my reflections on being raised in a conservative religious society and just the ponderings and wanderings of my mind, soul, and heart. And there's a story that I've written in the book, but I'm going to tell you something today that's even beyond what's written in the book. In the book, I write the story of what it was like to be in a relationship with somebody who was an alcoholic. And um, when they were inebriated, they become abusive. And they would become controlling, calling me names, pinning me to the ground, holding me against my will. And I thought the problem was only when they were drinking. And so I was trying to get them to stop drinking and stop drinking and stop drinking. They were throwing things. They would hold me down on the ground and they would, be screaming so much that spit's flying onto my face. And no one really ever saw this side of this person because this person was also this amazing life coach. This person was also this person who donated all this money to charity causes, sat on board of directors of nonprofits, all of these things, and was a very professional speaker and had substantial income. So it was hard for me to reconcile this is who this person is if they're under the influence, and this is who this person is if they are not. And so I was constantly arguing with this person to please stop drinking, please stop drinking. In my mind, I thought if they would just stop drinking, everything would be fine because then I'd have that person that was the person when they weren't drinking, that sober person who was very charming and lovable and even headed, like not volatile. But as the relationship went on and looking back now, there was all these red flags that I didn't see because I didn't recognize them as red flags. One of them is they wanted to start a relationship really quick. They wanted to be in committed relationship right away. They wanted to identify this is who we are and what we are. Um, what I thought was really romantic, like being at my house all over the time, not spending time with all of their friends or leaving all their friends behind, if you will, to be completely obsessive of me. I thought that was so endearing when really I understand that's another really big red flag because somebody who has a full life doesn't necessarily care to or want to or is mentally ill enough to turn their focus so much so that they become excessive and always available so fast. So it shouldn't happen fast that way. And I remember this person, he always wanted me to quit my job so I could work with him, be part of his company. We could spend every day together. Wouldn't that be amazing? And we could do these speaking events and we could do this and we could make all these changes. And I remember saying, but I love my job. I love my career. And down the road, when we're married, if we're married, then that's something we can revisit. But right now, I'm going to keep doing what I do because I love what I do. I'm going to pay my own bills. I'm going to do all of that. Um, so this is kind of the dynamics that were happening. And I wasn't aware enough to know that these were red flags. But then after you're out of a relationship, you start to study, oh, what are some of the red flags? And you're like, oh, look, boom, 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 boom. And so one of this finally escalated and this accumulated to this weekend away where he had promised me that he wasn't going to drink. And then, of course, he brought all of this liquor and he drank. I don't remember what it was. I know that it was a full six pack by himself. And then it was, I think, a whole bottle of rum in one day. And I was like, okay, first of all, like you're not safe when you're drinking. I'm not safe around you when you're drinking. And second of all, this is, you said you weren't going to drink anymore. And I remember he was like, yeah, but look at this, like I'm fine, like look, we didn't have any problems last night. And yeah, I got totally wasted and I wasn't violent, so doesn't that show that my drinking's not a problem, everything's fine? And I was like, you know what, this is just not going to work. And um so I began to leave, and we were in this cabin. And as I began to leave, he lost it and he wouldn't let me leave. And he held me against my will and pinned me on the ground. And um, essentially held me hostage. And I couldn't get away. And when I tried to call for help from my cell phone, he grabbed the phone and he broke it in half with his bare hands. and he threw it in the sink and began to pour water on it. And I still have this regret because 6 years of my kids, or maybe not 6 years, but it was multi-years of all of my kids' photos were on there that were just lost. My daughter's 18th birthday photos were on there. They're just gone. And it turned into this really volatile, dangerous situation where I was trapped. And I don't want to go into that right now. Eventually, I was able to escape and I was trying to get away and find help. So, more of this story is in the book. And so you can go to the book and read more of that. But where I want to get to is after I was able to find help, I was able to get to a friend's house that was in the next city because we were again in rural. And what I didn't know is so this man that I had been with, he ended up calling his best friend, and his best friend drove down from Salt Lake area, which is a 2.5 hour drive, and was with him for the night. And I was able to communicate through somebody else's phone what was going on. And then the best friend came the next day to pick me up and drove me the couple hours home. And I remember the friend saying to me, that he had gotten there that night, and the man that I had been with was out of his mind, drunk and drinking, and was suicidal, and there was guns in the house. And so he had stayed with him throughout the night. And on the way home, I explained what had happened in the cabin, what had happened the day before. And I remember his best friend saying to me, um, Katie, don't walk, run away from him and never look back. And going forward, there's so much that happens after you leave a situation like that. And I always say, like, relationships are like stretching out rubber bands. It's never clean and cut. It's usually this back and forth until the elasticity eventually wears out. And in those circumstances, also where there's so much volatility and there's so much emotional charge, it's really hard for that time where you're walking away because it's this pendulum swing of love bombing and then volatility and all of this stuff. So it's this really hard thing that you're working out when you're working out leaving. But I remember that statement from his best friend being an anchor in my life and being an anchor that I could hold on to because I knew somebody close to him, somebody who stayed close to him, somebody who was still in business with him, knew what had happened and had told me that. And so that was like, in all the gaslighting that began to occur, it was like the thing that, in a lot of ways, kept me centered in that no, somebody does know and they could say it clearly. And that helped me. So I share a little bit about that in my book that's coming out called Sovereign Soul. And you can go to my website and you can click on the list, read even the first chapter of that. But this is a complicated issue and I'm excited to share it. The book is really scary to share. There's so much, like, I feel emotional even just saying it. It is really hard to share some of the things that I'm sharing in the book. And I know that they're supposed to be shared. So I'm excited.